Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, brought to you by Gamblers World. And like every Thursday, and it is Thursday, October the 12th, I'm joined by Mr. Kyle Hunter and Mr. Doug Upstone, two of the finest handicappers you'll find anywhere in the country. My name is Ross Benjamin, and yours isn't. Thank goodness for you, because I've been on a 5-6-11 roll since last Saturday after such a torrid hot streak. Hey, you know what? You got to be transparent. I beat on my chest when I win, and I'm transparent when I lose, just like everybody on this channel. Anyway, Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross. And yes, it was this last week. Baseball was insane, okay, from that standpoint, unless you just absolutely love underdogs, okay, which some people do. From that standpoint, that's good. And hey, I also wanted to let everybody know that, and I know both these guys know of him. Scott Spreitzer and myself have started a new channel. It's called Us Against the Spread, and it's a show that we do twice weekly, and we give out, in terms of the number of plays, we give out like 100 selections, okay, over the course of a month. It's only $19.99 for a month, and you get college and the NFL. From that standpoint, it's not our premium plays. I just want to make that clear. Okay, it's not the premium plays that we sell at Docs, but it is something unique and different, and we've had an excellent response to this point. And so, just looking to check it out. So it's from that standpoint, it's Us Against the Spread.docsports.com.
There you go, Doug Upstone and Scott Spreitzer, another one of my favorite handicappers over at Doc Sports. He's been around for a long time, just like Doug. And two very credible individuals at that. Talk about credible individuals, Mr. Kyle Hunter. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Was looking for the Oregon Ducks hat here beforehand, and did find it. We got some big games to talk about here today, guys. I think this is kind of a sneaky, really good card of college football this weekend. A couple of weeks ago, everybody was talking about how great the games were. This weekend's pretty good too, guys.
Especially in games involving the Pac-12 this week.
Oh, yeah.
Very intriguing matchups. Even the non-conference game that Kyle's going to talk about, USC and Notre Dame. Doug's going to be talking Oregon and Washington. As you could see, Kyle's sporting the Oregon hat. So I don't know where that's going to take us, because the last time these guys butted heads was the Ohio State and Notre Dame game. And I am going to be looking at UCLA and Oregon State, another one of those Pac-12 matchups that I was referring to. So there you have it, folks. Doug, any interesting things that you would like to talk about? You mentioned Major League Baseball playoffs and all the 100-win teams falling by the wayside, and the LA Dodgers go down last night. And then we have the Philadelphia Phillies ready to pull the upset again tonight against the Atlanta Braves, and that would be a record-setting team like Atlanta, meaning record-center offensive numbers. But as you alluded to, here's the thing with postseason time, these 100-win teams that we've seen during the regular season, their strength has been offensively, and their pitching has been pretty much middle of the pack, a little above average, and it's come back to bite them, because if you're not hitting on teams like that, you're very vulnerable.
Yeah, that's the absolute truth. And that's what we're seeing just across the board here. And it's not like these other teams that are winning are necessarily, they're not really better teams, but the thing that they have is that their offenses have gotten hot at the right time. They're getting all the right type hits at the exact moment that they need them. And along with that, if you break down almost every team, they have two, let's just call it two legitimate pitchers, starting pitchers. So that helps everything along the way. Your bullpen has to get hot, and that's been the case also with all of the teams that have won and advanced. And so it's just one of those things. And, and let's face it, baseball for the most part is turning into the NCAA tournament for basketball. Because, you literally don't know what's going to happen. And so it's just wild to see this, and I see the arguments that, well, maybe if those teams, they lost their momentum from this and that. Well, we've never had a year like this year. And so you have to look at more of the factual aspects of it. And the factual aspects are these teams, as you just said, Ross, they're more built on offense than pitching. And and when you go into a slump, and maybe it's the other team's pitching, maybe it's not, but every team goes through slumps. And when they do, this is what you get.
Yeah. I mean, you only have one division, possibly one division winner advancing to the league championship series. And that was the least, easy for you to say, Doug, least likely of them all, and that's the Houston Astros. Kyle, any interesting stuff you saw in the sports betting world, either this past weekend or the days leading up to our show here?
Yeah, I will just kind of piggyback on your thoughts about the MLB playoffs real quick. The Dodgers. I mean, I definitely did not expect the Dodgers to go down like that. I had the over last night in the Dodgers and D-backs game, thinking there's no way the Dodgers don't score more than 2 runs against this Arizona starter and an Arizona bullpen that's not been very good. And somehow the Dodgers offense still stays slumbering. Didn't realize that the D-backs were gonna hit all 4 of their home runs and then be solo home runs. It would have been nice if somebody could have gotten on base. They could have spread them out a little bit, but D-backs came from behind twice against Milwaukee, and then they just stomped the Dodgers. The Braves Phillies won them. I'm still interested to see how that one goes here later. I think that's pretty fun series with all the drama that's involved in it and everything. But I think the other thing that stands out to me is some of these NFL teams with the going to England and then coming back, and some of the weird spots that we have. There's some pretty interesting situational spots. Finally, the weather this weekend, guys. Lots of weather games, both in college football and the NFL. People firing on these weather unders on Monday or Tuesday. It used to be, Thursday, you could jump on a weather under. Just some massive line moves. So I'm going to be curious to see how that works out this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I discussed the San Francisco-Cleveland game earlier this week on one of our shows, and the total opened at 40. Well, let me rephrase that. The total was 40 on Monday morning when I first did all my checks. And by the following day for our Tuesday show, it was down to 37, which we all know that's a huge move. And more times than not, when a total moves 3 points in one day, it's either weather related or a quarterback being ruled out that they didn't account for the day before. And the weather in Cleveland is supposed to be nasty. Supposed to rain throughout the game, winds of around 20 miles an hour. At the end of the day, I wouldn't be lining up that quickly to go over the total in that game. I know both defenses are good, but San Francisco scored 30 points or more in all 5 games this year. If you go back to last year, they've now gone 8 straight regular season games scoring 30 or more in 10 of their last 11. And when you look at Cleveland and their defensive numbers, look who they played so far. And then look at where those teams rank in terms of scoring in the NFL right now. I think they played the number 30, number 28, number 24, and number 17 scoring offenses so far in the NFL, number 17 being the Baltimore Ravens. So, again, just because the weather's bad doesn't mean that it's automatically going to go under, folks. So just be cognizant of that. All right, let's talk about the games in hand. We'll start with you, Doug. Oregon and Washington, real good matchup here. 2 really good quarterbacks, 2 guys that are vying for the Heisman Trophy right now. And the winner of this game, I'm sure that quarterback will be the favorite, possibly, to win the Heisman Trophy. We're talking about Brandon Penix for the Washington Huskies. We're talking about Bo Nix for the Oregon Ducks. The game is in Washington. The Huskies right now are a short 3-point favorite. The total in this game is 67. What have you, Doug?
Well, on this one, this is a confrontation of 5-0 teams for the first time in the Pac-12 conference in 19 years. So this is an unusual circumstance. These are the 2 top offenses in the country, and both have literally been unstoppable. For me, though, where the rubber meets the road in this one is the Ducks are number 6 in total defense, and the Huskies are run-of-the-mill number 64. That, to me, really creates the difference. Now, Oregon's attack is more balanced, and I think with that, that they have the possibility to keep Washington's passing attack on the sidelines more, and eventually they can wear down the Huskies. Now, the Ducks have protected the ball better also. They only have 1 turnover so far in 5 games compared to 7 for Washington. Another factor for me is in the game is sacks. Oregon, number 2 in the country in sacks at 4.5 per game. Washington, 116 at 1.2 points per game. That to me is going to put a lot of additional pressure on Michael Penix Jr. And I think it's just going to be enough to get him off his game. Oregon 8-1 after scoring 31 or more points in 3 straight games. And that's the main thing I want to say. 8-1, scoring three or more games. I think the Ducks, with Kyle's hat, they waddle to an outright upset of the Washington Huskies.
That's good. I'm glad there's no combativeness today like there was in the Ohio State and Notre Dame game. All friendly stuff, though. But in any event, Doug makes a compelling case for the Ducks. And the one thing that he brought up that I was going to talk about, and he took my thunder away, but that's okay because I get enough time on the air.
You do it all the time to me, so just knock it off.
Got to get over it, right? So Dan Lanning, Kyle, has really put a stamp on the Oregon Ducks. I mean, if those of you not familiar with Dan Lanning before he took over as the head coach in Oregon last year, former defensive coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs, and we know how good Georgia's defense was in prior years. Your take on this game, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it's number 1 versus number 2 offense, like Doug said. And, Oregon's going to easily be the best defense that Washington has faced so far. They haven't really faced that many good teams. To be fair, neither has Oregon. I think the strength of schedule here has not been very good. If you look at Oregon, I mean, 3 of their games were against Portland State, Hawaii, Stanford. So some of the raw numbers are a little bit hard to trust in a game like this because it's a big step up in class for both teams. It is supposed to rain during this game. I don't know. Ducks should be good in the rain, right? I mean, that theoretically they should be good in the rain, but I don't know that I would base my handicap on that. But guys, I think this one, Washington is a team that I don't want to bet against. I'm not going against Doug in this one, but Kalen DeBoer is such a good coach. Michael Penix Jr. is a really good fit in that offense. I think both teams are going to score points. If it wasn't going to be rainy, now, the wind doesn't look too high. If it wasn't going to be rainy, I think I'd like the over in this one. Last year, they had over 1,100 yards in this game. I don't see the defenses getting too many stops in this one either, and there's going to be plenty of pace. Both these teams like to play quickly. Washington, if you were to side along with Doug, if you were going to say a thing for Oregon, Washington, 94.2 penalty yards per game. That's worst in the country. If you get a really close spread against another really good team, getting that many penalties is going to slow you down. That could really cost you a game that you should have won. So that'll be interesting. I think Washington's secondary is their weakness. They haven't really been tested too much so far this year. To me, it's hard to bet Oregon because they're 5-0 against the spread and plus 12 average ATS margin. So I feel like the market's already high on them, but the market's high on Washington as well. I like to try to buy low, sell high. Both of these teams are ranked very highly for good reason. So I don't know what side to take. I'm still going to lean to the over here on this one, guys, thinking that this one could be a shootout. I wish it wasn't going to be rainy, but, more than anything, I mean, obviously we're handicappers and we bet on sports, but I am a massive fan of college football, and I am super excited to watch this game.
Absolutely. This should be very entertaining. My theory on rain is quite simple. If you mentioned, Kyle, that the wind conditions shouldn't be much of a factor. And if you get 2 teams that pass the ball extremely well, even though if you look inside the numbers, both teams run the ball a little more than they pass. But having said that, the bottom line is that receivers know where they're going on a wet field, and defensive backs don't. So I don't put a lot of credence in rain if I like an over. I mean, the total here is still 67. Now, if you told me there was going to be 20-mile-an-hour winds and teams were going to be handcuffed in their passing game 2 quarters each, then it's one thing. But I would further check at the weather conditions in this game if you're looking at the total prior to game time. But other than that, I want you to hear this clearly, Doug. I'm going to agree with Doug Upstone on this pick on the Oregon Ducks. I just think, yes, Kyle makes a good point. They haven't faced the kind of competition that you could say that they're an elite defense yet. Okay. But I trust Dan Lanning. I trust his ability to game plan against an explosive offense. Not to say they're going to shut the Huskies down, but I think the difference in this game will come down to who can make the critical stop at a critical time of the game. And I have more faith in the fact, from what I've seen on TV with my own eyes and on paper, and what I just alluded to in terms of Dan Lanning's defensive prowess as a defensive coordinator and now as a head coach, that I'm going to lean toward Oregon right here at this particular moment in time. All right, let's get to the other game. One of the other games that we're going to talk about. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish will be entertaining USC. Notre Dame coming up a deflating loss last week, losing to Louisville, virtually eliminated them out of the national championship contention picture. And again, how do they respond? And, I look at this, and it's like what I discussed with Doug last week with the LSU and Missouri game. My antennas always go up when I see a 2-loss team like Notre Dame as a 2.5-point home favorite right now against an undefeated team like USC. But I've also mentioned, Kyle, on several occasions leading up to the game, how much I like Notre Dame in this matchup. Now, after what I saw last week, I'm not as convinced, okay? But I'm still going to stick to my guns. My lean is Notre Dame here. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think, my friend.
Yeah, Ross, I had to wear the Oregon hat today because this is 2 weeks in a row you've given me a Notre Dame game, and I don't want to wear the Notre Dame hat and make people think that I'm a Notre Dame fan because, Doug's a Notre Dame fan.
By the way, Jesse has bragged all week that he had Louisville and you had Notre Dame, and just want to let you know that.
That's very true. I will give him that. I will say one of my premium plays for clients was the under in that game, which did win. I will say I got super nervous at the end of that game. It looked like an easy under. You guys know, with the onside kick, they get it back. Almost goes over in bad fashion. But yes, he was right on Louisville. Louisville was in a better situational spot and ended up winning out. Brom's done a great job with that Louisville team, certainly.
Yeah. Notre
Dame in this game, they come off a bad loss. The turnovers, finally, we got the Sam Hartman turnover game. That always comes in once in a while. Hopefully he got that out of his system because Hartman's a good quarterback, but occasionally he has this weird game. He did it at Wake Forest too. A couple times here and there, he'd have 6 or 8 turnovers and you're like, what is going on? The next week he's good again. So, USC, let's look at the other side though. USC, super fortunate to win last week against Arizona. I watched almost the entire game in that game. Came away far less impressed with USC. Obviously, Caleb Williams is fantastic, and he got him out of that mess. But USC as a team has plenty of weaknesses. Arizona had a 56% standard down success rate in that game. This USC defense is still really bad. Year after year, we're told USC brings in new recruits. Here's a big transfer that comes in. The defense is going to be way better. Where is it? I haven't seen it yet. We'll see if we see it in this game, but I don't want to bet on it. Alex Grinch just not getting the job done. USC is 99th in strength of schedule so far this year, and they've had multiple close calls. They also let Colorado back in the game after that big lead. USC defensively, I just cannot trust them to stop Notre Dame running the football here. USC is 87th in rushing play success rate allowed, so they're allowing the opposition to have a successful rushing play very consistently. If you look at what Notre Dame wants to do, what do you think they'd really want to do in this game? I think they'd want to run the ball, get 4 or 5 yards every time, keep the ball away from Caleb Williams. I think that's fine with them. Marcus Freeman would be happy to run, win the time of possession, win a lower scoring game. Now, this total has been bet down because of the wind and rain. In this case, gusts of 25 miles per hour are expected. So this one is different than the Oregon and Washington game where it makes sense to me that the line has gone down. I don't know about you guys, but it's not very easy for me to bet a USC under. So I would have to hold my nose if I bet a USC under, that's for sure. But I think I trust Notre Dame at home in a big game here. They get another shot with a big name opponent coming in. USC's defense is not trustworthy. I'm going to lay the -2.5 here with Notre Dame. I think this is a good get right spot for them against a USC team that has a Heisman Trophy quarterback, obviously, but lots of question marks around him.
Yeah, and most specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And as you alluded to, we keep hearing about USC bringing in new defensive coordinator after new defensive coordinator. Seems like a ongoing theme, not only for Lincoln Riley since he's arrived at USC, but we heard similar types of things before season started at Oklahoma, who played a similar style, seemed to win a lot of high-scoring games, seemed to keep teams that they appeared to be vastly superior to on paper and keep them in games just because of their inability to stop the opposing offenses. So again, it's a concern and a valid one. And I agree with Kyle, Doug. I think Notre Dame, look, the problem with Notre Dame last week is they weren't able to run the ball. And when that happens and you become one-dimensional, your quarterback's not going to be as effective. I'm not making excuses for Sam Hartman, okay? None whatsoever. And we've talked about it at length. Not only Kyle just brought it up, and me and you, Doug, have talked about it, reminding everybody of his game against North Carolina State. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, where he threw interceptions on like 5 consecutive offensive possessions. However, I think if you're able to establish the run here, which I think they will, it's going to open up the play-action passing game for Notre Dame. The problem with the Notre Dame receivers, like me and Doug talked about earlier this week, Kyle, is their inability to get separation. And it seems like their best target has been their tight end. Anyway, Doug, your thoughts on this Notre Dame USC matchup?
Well, I'm going to go contrarian here, and I'll explain why. I'm going to take the points with USC as the play, and the reasons for that is that first of all, USC is getting poor mouthed by everyone. Okay, their defense is the worst in college football. There's no way this team should be undefeated. Okay, all of that stuff. Well, you know what? They still are undefeated, and they do find ways to win. And so with Notre Dame, I'm looking at them in their last 3 games, they have not averaged 20 points per game. The offense is off kilter. Whether it's I don't put it entirely on Hartman. I don't put it entirely on the wide receivers, and I don't put it entirely on the play calling. But if you put that whole package together, the numbers are the numbers. Yes, they have played some good, very good defensive teams, but that wasn't supposed to be an issue coming into that series of games. This team was still supposed to score. So I'm throwing that out the window. And the other thing is this is their 8th straight game. The defense has gotten worn down with each succeeding game. The number of rushing yards the opposing teams have gotten has increased with each game. The team looks tired. The team looks worn out to me. Yes, they're going to get an extra juice playing at home. It's going to be a big deal, but it's not like USC hasn't gone into South Bend and won before and sometimes not having inferior teams. I'm going to take the points here. I just think USC is just going to outscore Notre Dame. I don't know if the game ends up being a higher scoring, obviously the weather, there's an impact, but hard to determine exactly what that's going to be. But I think the higher scoring the game, that only is more advantageous to USC. And I think they obviously have the quarterback to have them come from behind, just like when we first saw the first version of the Bush push all that many years ago. So I'm going to take USC plus the points on this one.
All right. So there you have it from Doug, who's opposing me and Kyle, and that's okay. And I'll remind Doug that last week, there was a game between Missouri and LSU, and the 2-loss team on the road was the favorite. And I got lucky and beat him on that game. Okay. I mean, it's pick 6 with 34 seconds to go. My point being is not to pick on Doug, but my point being is when you want to give me a 2-loss team as a favorite against an undefeated team, I'm going to side with the odds makers, because regardless of the AP rankings, I trust the odds makers unequivocally more to set an accurate line than I do the pollsters to vote accurately. So again, I'm going to have a lean toward Notre Dame here. So is Kyle. That's our official pick. Kyle Hunter, Notre Dame -2.5 against USC. And Doug, once again, tell the folks who you want in your game, Oregon and Washington, and then I'll get to my contest.
Okay, so with Oregon, I'm going to take the Oregon Ducks plus the 3 over Washington, and I will add one thing to what you said, Ross, is that to trust the odds makers. Well, the odds makers are telling you that USC is the better team by having Notre Dame just being at 2.5 because Notre Dame gets 4 at home. So also keep that in mind as well. I'm just saying, Ross. That's
yeah.
all.
Well, I mean, even if let's switch the scenario. I get it. It's okay. It's okay. So if they're getting 4 at home, that means on a neutral field, it's
USC
1.5.
point favorite.
Yeah.
Right.
So USC would still be maybe a 4.5 point favorite as an undefeated team against a 2-loss team. That's the way I look at things. But it's not set in stone. Okay, it's not I don't have anything that's a no-brainer play.
Right.
I'm just making a comment on what I've seen. A team coming off a flat game, another team that can't stop anybody right now. We'll see what happens. I mean, you could be end up being right on this, Doug. You've been
I actually hope I'm wrong, to tell you the truth.
I was going to say, who are you rooting for, though, Doug?
As a fan, yeah, there's no question. I want Notre Dame to win, but I'm not trying to look at it from my handicapping perspective, and that's all you can do, and that's how I'm viewing that game. So anyway,
so see what I mean? Now you only been working with Doug for a little while now on video. I've been with him for like 3 years now. Can you see how he confuses the living hell out of me? Anyway, all fun, buddy. I love you. All right, let me look at my game here before I get myself in further trouble with Mr. Upstone. I'm going to be looking at the UCLA and Oregon State game, and I'm going to make this real brief, okay? The total in this game is 53. That's what I'm going to focus on. UCLA, as opposed to past UCLA teams, especially under the tutelage of current head coach Chip Kelly, this is an extremely good defensive team, unlike any they've had in recent seasons. As a matter of fact, first 5 games, I get it, they didn't play the sternness of competition yet, but they've allowed 17 points or fewer in all 5 of those games, the last 4 of which they allowed 259 yards or less, and they forced 13 turnovers in their first 5 games. So a lot of drive-killing turnovers right there for UCLA, and that certainly helps your point per game differential. Oregon State, 52-40 at Cal last Saturday. Not a lot to brag about defensively because they allowed the Cal Bears to score, obviously, 40 points and amassed 448 yards of total offense. Now, 2 weeks before that, they allowed 38 points and 528 yards at Washington State. However, the 3 games they played at home, much different. 3 games at home, 7.7 point game, or 7 points per game allowed, 234 yards per game allowed on their home field. Both of these teams run the ball much more than they pass. I mistakenly said that about Washington, which isn't true. I got confused because this is my own analysis. But both teams run the ball a tad more than they pass, and each is very good at defending the run. So I'm going to go UCLA and Oregon State under 53, and I'm curious, Kyle is the master of picking college football totals. What's your take is there?
All right, Ross, I really like your play here. I think this is a good underplay. I like this one better than my play for what it's worth. So, we picked the games out ahead of time. Notre Dame is my side there in that one, but I like the under in this game. Totals are definitely my stronger point. And I would say the under here in this one makes a lot of sense to me because you have Oregon State coming off those higher scoring games against teams that don't play like UCLA. UCLA's defense is number 1 in the country, yards per play so far this season. And go back and look at UCLA's game last week. I think that was the game that kind of proved it to me. UCLA's defense just shut down Cam Ward and Washington State, an offense that have been really good against everybody. Washington State had 17 points in that game, and one of them was a defensive touchdown. So, yeah. I mean, they really could not move the ball at all. They had a 19% success rate on passing downs last week, about as bad as you'll ever see. And with Arbuckle, their offensive coordinator, and Cam Ward, Washington State's passing game has been really good. So I think this UCLA defense is very legit at this point. they're sixth in explosiveness allowed, so they're not giving up big plays. That's super important when you look at a total, because if you have a total that's in the mid 50s like this and somebody's not giving up a lot of big plays, the new clock rules are going to matter because the clock's not stopping with first downs. You're kind of okay with some first downs and somebody kicks a field goal after a while. Obviously, the thing that's a killer is those huge plays that take almost no time. So I think UCLA's defense has been excellent. And I don't think Oregon State's defense is as bad as they looked in those last couple games. They're 28th in run defense this year, 3.21 yards per carry. And Dante Moore for UCLA has not played very well the last few games. I don't even really know if Chip Kelly trusts him that much at this point. It looks like they're being a bit cautious. He is a freshman, a guy who has a high upside, but he hasn't consistently looked good. If you look at the offensive line for UCLA, they're 110th in pass blocking grade at PFF. So they're struggling to block. I don't think they can run the ball easily in this game. So I think this is a really good matchup. This should be a close game. And I think this total is too high.
Yeah, you're talking about the pick six last week and their win over Washington State I believe the game before, in which they lost to Utah 14-7. One of Utah's touchdowns was a pick six as well. So along with them just giving up 17 points or fewer in all 5 games this year, 2 of the touchdowns they allowed but were by way of pick six. Their offense actually gave up. And if you really sit down and look at it, their offense has given up almost as many points as their defense is, Doug.
Yes, well, it was an impressive display last week. I also put a lot of the blame on Washington State, and particularly the offensive coordinator in that game for his inability to come up with something that worked other than literally 2 drives in that game. But here nor there. What we're talking about is this game, and this is the case. So you got this UCLA defense that that had players floating around, okay, not necessarily lining up, doing lots of different stuff to confuse the opposing team. So how do you take that away? Well, you know what? You take a team like Oregon State, who has a top 5 offensive line. They're huge, they're mean. You line them up and you just mow them down. Okay. And that to me is how the game plan is going to be. Line them up, man on man. Who's better? Who's stronger? Who's more physical? Who can create? And that's where I'm going to take Oregon State for that reason. They're going to be able to I think, overpower. It's not going to be a high scoring game, as you guys have mentioned, but I think they're just going to overall, they're going to take care of business there. UCLA with Moore having some problems, and it's not going to be on the road in a hostile environment. And speaking of hostile environments, how about the Beavers? 14-1 straight up and against the spread at home. Okay. In Corvallis, give me the Beavers, baby, on this one.
There you go. The Oregon State Beavers from Doug. Our official pick, though, is my pick, which is the under 53 in the UCLA and Oregon State game. Kyle likes the Notre Dame Fighting Irish minus the 2.5 against USC. Are you going to be like Doug and not lean toward the money line? If you can get 140 or less on the money line, are you a proponent of doing that, Kyle, or no?
I'm going to take the minus 2.5.
Minus 2.5. These guys are always worried about the juice. Juice only counts when you lose. Show some damn confidence, both of you. Anyway, hey, it's a personal preference, and we're going to go with Notre Dame minus 2.5. And Doug, he likes the Oregon Ducks plus the 3 on the road at the Washington Huskies. Doug, tell the folks.
And I'm not doing the money line on that either, just to be clear.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm just take the points instead on that one.
We could have a whole nother show talking about the anyway, those are philosophies.
I wouldn't want your demeanor to go farther south on that, Ross. So we're good on that. So
yeah, it's bottom line is whatever works for all of us, So
exactly.
I know that between the 3 of us, when we develop an opinion for our own handicapping prowess, it's not a short sample size that we came to that conclusion or why we do things. So again, we respect each other in that fashion. Doesn't mean I think Doug and Kyle are stupid. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Nor, well, they might think I'm stupid. That's okay. Most people do, but I always prove them wrong, Doug, over the long. Doug, tell the folks what you may have coming up this weekend and why people should invest their hard-earned money with you at DocSports.com.
Well, I'd be part of the reason is I got 10 play card this weekend, 7 in college and 3 in the NFL. And in the NFL, 3 straight winning weeks. Okay, coming off up $1,550 in those weeks, according to Doc's units. So that's been very good. So looking to continue that. And I have a 7-unit best bet, my highest play so far this season in the NFL going on Sunday. And with the deep card in college football, I got a 6-unit play going on Saturday night. So looking forward to that also. And then, of course, there's props that will likely be the case on Sunday. Just have to go through and do some more research on those. And started NHL's up. Okay, they've dropped the puck. 2-0 start, Ross. So I Saturday got a big card on Saturday and likely to have at least 1, if not 2 plays on Saturday.
There you go. Doug's one of the best NHL handicappers you'll find anywhere, folks. And if you don't believe me, he could provide a lot of documentation and point you in the right direction where he's been monitored over the years. And again, Doug, tell the folks a little bit about what you and Scott again have going on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll just make it real quick. It said at the top of the show, it's actually not at YouTube, but it's just
Okay.
Us Against the Spread. Okay, it's Us Against the Spread .docsports.com. It's its own website.
Okay.
We do 2 shows. One, a college show on Thursday nights, and Thursday nights, an NFL show where we cover every game that's remaining on the schedule, and we do that one on Friday. And so you sign up. It's $19.99. $5 a week, okay, is all it's going to cost you. And for those that, let's just say, are more on a budget in terms of betting, you like to bet, but you don't have the money in some cases, maybe, it's a tremendous opportunity to get some outstanding games that you might like to bet in the first place, because all 3 of us know you might buy our selections, but we know you bet other games. So this just gives you more information from that standpoint then too. So that's Us Against the Spread at DocSports.com.
And that goes for $19 a week, you said?
$19.99 a month, Ross.
A month. Wow, what a deal. Anyway, Kyle does his own thing with Bet USA, right, Kyle? You do a podcast for as well. And tell us a little bit about that. And then also tell the folks why they should buy from you or gamblersworld.net.
Yeah, I do the Bet US college football show with Gary Seegers and Parker Fleming. We have a good time there every week. Tuesdays and Wednesdays we go live. College basketball is going to be starting soon. I've already started my prep for college basketball. There were a ton of teams in college basketball. You guys know this. I've been leafing through the magazines, putting my notes together. Always a long, busy season during that time of the year. But guys, as far as this weekend, I already have 6 college football plays up, 1 NFL play up as well. I'll be adding a couple more plays at least. Last weekend, 3 and 4 in college football, so a little bit subpar the last couple of weeks. I did win my AAC total of the year last weekend. I'll only have one of those too, so I'm not going to be one of those guys that's going to say total of the year every single weekend or something. I don't like that kind of marketing style, so that one did cash in. I know I had several people on that one as well, so that was nice to get that one, but hoping to have a little bit better record this weekend and looking at a lot of the factors going on here this week, and pretty big card coming up. You can check everything out over at Gamblers World. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks.
There you go. Kyle Hunter over at gamblersworld.net. And also you can check out his podcast that he just alluded to as well. You could find me at gamblersworld.net. So week for me last week. I did go 4-2 in college football, continued the winning there. I dropped games the last 2 nights in college football, though, so now I'm just 20-7 with my last 27 college football picks, but I'll take that. And also all football together, NFL, college football together, 33-16 since September the 14th. All sports, 47, and 23 since September the 4th, and somewhere around 95-59 since August the 4th in all sports. So as much as it was a little bit of an off week for me last week, the long-term success is something you need to pay attention to, because like all of us, you should be investing in us long-term Unless you're a guy that just likes to dabble once in a while, that's okay. Speaking of which, over at gamblersworld.net with all the handicappers there, including me and Kyle, you get our personal guarantee. If you don't win, you don't make a profit. We guarantee our picks for all single game, multi-game, daily packages, as well as all subscription plans of 30 days or less. Right now, you can get the rest of the Major League Baseball postseason for $149. And again, great values there. Invest in this long term. And again, we certainly understand if you're somebody who just likes to dabble in once in a while. The picks are there on a daily basis, folks. You need to take advantage of all of that. All right, don't forget to subscribe, folks. You'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your video box if you're watching on your PC. If you're watching on your smart TV or on your mobile device, you'll see a black subscribe button right underneath the video box. Click on that. Absolutely free. No strings attached. No hidden agenda. I'm going to ask you to do one step further. And this is even if you have subscribed already and you haven't taken care of this, make your life a little bit easier. Go into your YouTube settings and click on an alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. And you'll be notified immediately upon any of our future podcasts going up on our channel. We'll be live tomorrow with Jesse Schule and Sean Higgs, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So love to have you join us. At that time, you could chime in with all your comments, questions, whatever you want addressed, and we'll get to as many of you as possible, time permitting. Again, 3 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, live show. Join us then. Doug, there's a like button right underneath us. Anything you would like them to do with that like button?
Right there.
Hit the
right
like
there.
button and hit that like button. Just a small token of your appreciation for all the time, effort, and diligence we put in to making this a successful sports betting podcast, and most importantly, to making you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. For Kyle Hunter, Doug Upstone, and Ross Benjamin, have a great weekend, folks. Don't forget, join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time.